Today gives me great pleasure to welcome Mats Johansson, Senior Marketing Manager within the areas of 5G end-to-end and network slicing at Ericsson. Welcome, Mats.
Thank you, Millard. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining us today. The global COVID-19 pandemic has illuminated the importance of reliable connectivity. And with the introduction of 5G, we've seen the importance of the role of network slicing could play in this transformation. So Mats, why do you deem why network slicing has become an important topic to discuss?
Well, it's now that we see with the introduction of 5G that CSPs really start to think about how should they monetize 5G. And the reason we built 5G in the first place was really to boost 5G as a network for all kinds of services, including all kinds of IoT services, which were not addressed beforehand. Previous networks were mainly built for consumers. And we see that, of course, that network slicing in itself offers a lot of benefits, such as the fact that you can isolate and customize it to fulfill the requirements for the various services in a way that wasn't possible before. And this isolation in itself brings a lot of benefits. It increases the security because we can now isolate, so any flaws within a slice stays within a slice and will not affect the entire network. Also, it makes operations more efficient, as we can start and try out and verify this new service alone without having to re-verify the entire system. We can work more nimble and agile with new service introductions, and we can enable all of these industry use cases we couldn't before. So it's much more than just shorter latency in use cases. It's also the whole way we operate and run the networks more efficiently in order to afford to have one network for all of these services, which otherwise may not have been viable business cases in themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, as far as monetary viability goes, is there a good business case for network slicing?
We believe that there is, and we have made an extensive study recently, earlier this year, in collaboration with Arthur D. Little, where we looked globally at we have studied and analyzed more than 70 different reports. We have also looked from a bottom-up perspective of over 400 use cases to deem which ones do really need slicing and which don't. And we have come to the conclusion that roughly 25% of 5G use cases will depend on slicing. And this sums up to roughly a $200 billion of potential revenue in 2030 within mainly 6 different industries. And these industries are transportation, energy and utilities, government services, healthcare, also transportation, and media and entertainment. And these are, of course, big industries which could be divided into sub-segments. Within transportation, automotive, of course, is one. Within media, gaming for sure is one, and video is another one. However, looking at these 6 industries and these 10 different industry segments, we see a growth rate, a compound average growth rate ranging from around 23 to 46% over the course of these years leading up to 2030. So yes, there is definitely a potential and an upside coming along for the CSPs to grab, whereas the traditional business as of today grows only at a limited percent, low single digit percent wise. So yes, we believe it's a good business case for network slicing, certainly, provided you do things right.
Absolutely. So I think moving from there, so if the business case is there, I mean, what are the key enablers that one needs to set up slices?
Well, slices is certainly not the first thing that you do. Very important here is to keep the momentum of NFV and SDN, which we started now many years ago, to build that foundation where you need to have a virtualized core network, you need a cloud infrastructure platform, a telco cloud to build on. And this is well underway and among most CSPs worldwide. However, there is still work to do, and the foremost is, of course, the introduction of 5G standalone, NR standalone, and introduction of the cloud native 5G core, which has started to happen substantially, but most CSP has yet to introduce 5G core and cloud native technologies. And we believe those to be quite important as well. And then you could argue, how much do you really need? You could do, I think, with limited orchestration to begin with, but you need to have some kind of way to orchestrate and set up the slices. We believe in the beginning it could be a limited need, but at the end of the day, you need to also extend your cloud platform to edge computing, and you also need to connect to BSS systems to cater for, such that you could monetize, you could handle customers, you could offer potentially self-service portal possibilities to automatically instantiate and deploy network slice-based services. So the automation will come into play and will more and more important on various layers of the stack as we go forward. So these building blocks need to work end to end, and that is of course a task in itself.
No, absolutely. Probably be prudent to kind of end on how you see the journey looking like. Actually, where does one need to be to get there? What does it really take, Max?
It's a journey, of course, that will depend on a lot of factors, but I think key starting point for any CSP is you need to have your own strategy in place. What are you really aiming for? Where can you start? Where potentially you could start where you already have good relations with certain enterprises, and how it can help them along. You need to also probably start small, make something work, and learn as you go, because not only do you need to introduce new technologies and building blocks, you also need to set up a commercial way to manage and handle slices, to treat them as product, to lifecycle manage them. You need to look over your pricing strategies. You need to also consider, to what extent should I go for enterprise solutions versus consumer? There will be, of course, consumer upside here as well, not least within video and gaming, etc. But in the case of the enterprise, there is also the decision, should I try to also cover campus areas? Should I offer dedicated and private networks to these enterprises? Depending on those choices, that also determines your journey. If you start with campus-based services, that limits your investments early on, whereas going for, let's say, in connected vehicles, you need to have a more national coverage for your service, which is another journey of making sure that you cover edge computing across your service area. So there are various considerations here. However, we have developed some guidelines how we think you could considerations depending on what type of services you would go for. That leads to different geographies you need to consider, like should it be more on-prem, should it be nationwide, wide area, or should it be a limited area like a city or a region, for instance. you could consider to introduce gaming only in a few major cities to begin with, and then expand. So there are there are different choices where, depending on your services and choice, you would introduce these things gradually. And not to forget is operations. You need to transform the way you operate and run both the cloudified core networks as well as managing slices, etc. So this is quite a lot to think about, but we can help you a lot.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Matt, for joining us today for this Layer123 Soundbite. Just for everybody out there, Matt's colleagues from Ericsson will be speaking at the Layer123 World Congress this November, which runs from the 16th to the 18th virtually. So please do visit Layer123 website for more details and how to register for the event. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Matt, once again.
Thank you, Millard. Pleasure.